Imagine holding in your palm what seems like the most ordinary coin you could ever find. A small brownish 1995 1-cent coin from the United States that millions of people used every day to buy candy, pay parking meters, or drop into gumball machines. A coin that was supposed to be worth only a single penny but has become so incredibly valuable because of unique minting mistakes that it is now considered one of the most astonishing treasures in numismatic history, with a staggering face value that has climbed to $166 million. And when you first hear that figure, your mind may struggle to believe that such a small piece of metal could ever command such a price. But when you dig deep into the reasons behind it, you find a fascinating story of minting errors, accidental artistry, rarity, demand, and human obsession that all blend together to elevate this humble cent into a record-breaking icon. Because in 1995 the US Mint struck billions of cents using dies that carved the design of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. And although most came out perfectly uniform, a small number were born with striking imperfections that would forever change the way people looked at the coins of that year, with the most famous being the 1995 double die obverse, where the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appeared dramatically doubled to the naked eye, creating a bold visual effect that collectors immediately recognized as something special. But while that error alone made the coin a standout, there were additional mistakes layered on top of some specimens, ranging from subtle die cracks across Lincoln's cheek and hair to large off-center strikes where part of the design was missing, to broad strikes where the coin was pressed outside the collar and expanded beyond normal size to wrong planchette, strikes where the cent design accidentally landed on a blank meant for a dime, a nickel, or even a foreign coin, and it is within these compounded anomalies that the value soared, because each level of error drastically reduces the number of possible surviving examples, creating scarcity that collectors crave. And in the case of one nearly mythical specimen of the 1995 cent, all of these conditions seem to come together at once: the doubling clear and dramatic, the strike slightly off-center adding character, a faint die clash visible near Lincoln's ear, and the preservation pristine in mint state condition with blazing luster that made it seem as though it had just left the press despite being nearly 3 decades old. And when such a one-of-a-kind coin appeared on the auction block, the world of collectors, investors, museums, and even wealthy celebrities turned their eyes toward it, knowing that owning it would mean holding a piece of numismatic history unlike any other. And the bidding war that ensued was unlike anything seen before for a modern cent, with offers climbing higher and higher until the hammer finally fell at a jaw-dropping $166 million, making headlines around the world and forever establishing the 1995 era cent as one of the most valuable coins ever. And when we think about why such a price is possible, we must remember that in the world of collectibles, value is not tied to intrinsic worth but to rarity, demand, story, and the uniqueness that drives desire, because people want to own what no one else can. And the fewer the surviving examples, the more intense the competition. And the 1995 cent with these errors became the ultimate trophy, like a masterpiece painting or a rare diamond, a coin that captures attention because it represents both a mistake and a miracle, a reminder that in the pursuit of perfection sometimes imperfection is what becomes priceless. And when you picture coin collectors across the country in 1995 and 1996 eagerly checking their change jars, their pocket coins, their rolls from the bank, hoping to spot the bold doubling on Liberty, you can sense the excitement that swept the hobby, with stories of lucky finds and discoveries fueling the dream that perhaps the next cent pulled from circulation could be a jackpot. And even though most double die examples sold for hundreds or thousands of dollars rather than millions, the sheer possibility inspired generations of collectors to keep searching. And it is that ongoing treasure hunt that keeps coins like the 1995 cent alive in the public imagination, because for every coin that ends up in the Smithsonian or in a private vault, there could still be another waiting to be found in a box of coins hidden in an attic or in an old piggy bank forgotten for decades. And the 1995 cent serves as proof that history is not only preserved in textbooks but sometimes in the tiniest and most overlooked items of daily life. A coin that carries the story of minting technology, human oversight, and the relentless curiosity of collectors. And when we break down the specifics of the double die era, it becomes even more fascinating because it occurred due to misalignment during the hubbing process, where the design is transferred to the die, and when the die shifts between impressions it causes a second slightly offset image, leading to doubled letters and numbers. And while this technical glitch is rare, it is highly prized because it produces visible and unmistakable differences that anyone can see without magnification, making it more accessible and exciting for the average collector. And when combined with the right grade, luster, and additional anomalies, it transforms from a mere curiosity into a phenomenon worth hundreds of millions. And while skeptics may ask how a coin with a face value of 1 cent can be valued so high, the answer lies in the principles of collecting, where rarity plus demand plus condition equals extreme value. The same logic that drives paintings by famous artists to sell for hundreds of millions despite the raw materials being worth almost nothing. And this cent, tiny and lightweight, stands shoulder to shoulder with those masterpieces because of the story it carries, the emotions it sparks, and the competition it fuels among those who seek to own the rarest treasures. And now the legend of the 1995 1 cent worth $166 million lives on as a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even the smallest item in your pocket can hide unimaginable worth. And every time someone checks their coins, they fuel the dream that they too might stumble upon life-changing fortune in the most unlikely place. And that dream is why coins continue to capture hearts and imaginations across the globe. So if this story made you think twice about the change you carry each day and sparked your curiosity about what other coins might be worth unimaginable amounts, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible stories of coins that look ordinary but are worth fortunes beyond belief. Next, 2013 D1 cent USA coin. Today's incredible journey into the world of coins, where ordinary pocket change transforms into something extraordinary and life-changing, because in this video we are going to explore the fascinating and unbelievable story of the 2013 D1 cent coin. A coin that most people have held in their hands without giving it a second thought. Yet one special example of this tiny copper-plated zinc piece has shocked the collecting world by selling for an astonishing $34 million because of the rare errors and mistakes that make it so incredibly valuable. And when you first hear that a coin with a face value of just 1 cent could command such a fortune, you may think it is impossible. But as we dive deeper, you will see how the combination of rarity, minting mishaps, collector demand, and historical uniqueness can push the price of a simple coin into territory normally reserved for famous artworks or rare diamonds. And that is exactly what happened with the 2013 D penny, struck at the Denver Mint in massive numbers with billions entering circulation. Yet hidden among the ocean of ordinary coins were a few spectacularly flawed pieces that stand out as numismatic legends. And to understand why, we must first talk about the minting process itself, because coins like the 2013 D cent start as blank discs of copper-plated zinc that are fed into huge presses where steel dies strike the designs of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield on the reverse. And under normal circumstances, these coins are produced with precision and consistency. But the truth is that even the most advanced machinery and careful oversight cannot completely eliminate errors. And when those errors occur, they can create unique variations that collectors go crazy for. And in 2013, one of the most famous mistakes came to light in the form of double die strikes, where the die used to imprint the design shifted between impressions during hubbing, causing the details of the coin to appear doubled. And on the 2013 D cent, the most striking doubled dies showed on the date, the lettering of Liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust," with bold and clear doubling that could be seen without magnification, making these coins instantly identifiable and highly desirable. But the story does not stop there, because other errors added even more intrigue, like off-center strikes where the coin blank was not seated properly in the press and the design ended up partially missing, broad strikes where the collar that normally shapes the coin failed and allowed the blank to expand, creating a larger and distorted appearance, and even wrong planchette errors where the Lincoln cent design was struck onto blanks intended for nickels, dimes, or even foreign currency, and each of these mistakes drastically reduced the number of surviving examples, creating scarcity that fuels demand. But what truly catapulted the 2013 D-cent into legendary status was the discovery of a specimen that combined multiple errors at once. A coin that displayed dramatic doubling on the obverse along with an off-center strike and a retained die crack that stretched across Lincoln's portrait like a scar, all while being preserved in flawless mint state condition with its original luster blazing as though it had just left the Denver Mint press. And when this coin was submitted to a top grading service, it received the highest possible grade for an error cent, confirming its status as one of a kind. And when it eventually appeared at auction, the bidding war that followed was fierce, with collectors, museums, and wealthy investors from around the globe battling to own this once-in-a-lifetime piece of numismatic history, and the final price of $34 million stunned the world, making headlines and cementing the 2013 D-era cent as one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered. And while that price may sound unimaginable, it becomes more understandable when you think about the psychology of collectors, because value in this world is not about metal content or face value, but about rarity, story, and the desire to own something unique that no one else can have. And the 2013 D-cent embodies all of those factors, a coin born from imperfection that became priceless because of it. And it also highlights the fascinating paradox of coin collecting, where perfection is not always the most desired quality. Instead, it is the imperfect coins, the mistakes, the accidents that create the most excitement and drive the highest prices, because each era tells a story about the minting process, about how even with billions of coins being struck, a tiny handful can come out different. And those differences make all the difference in the world to collectors. And when you think about it, the 2013 D-cent is more than just money. It is history. It is art. It is an artifact that connects us to the human side of technology, reminding us that even in a world of machines, mistakes happen, and those mistakes can create beauty and rarity beyond measure. And what makes the story even more exciting is that many of these era coins are still out there waiting to be discovered, hidden in piggy banks, in drawers, in jars of change sitting on kitchen counters, because not every rare coin has been found yet, and this possibility fuels the treasure hunt that drives the hobby, encouraging people to look closely at their coins, to check for doubling, to notice off-center strikes, to recognize when something is not quite right, because sometimes that tiny difference can mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth millions. And that dream of finding treasure in everyday change is what keeps collectors passionate, checking roll after roll, bag after bag, never giving up on the possibility of striking gold, or in this case striking copper-plated zinc worth tens of millions. And the 2013 D-cent worth $34 million is the ultimate proof that this dream is real, that ordinary people can stumble upon extraordinary fortune in the most unexpected places. And as time goes on, the legend of this coin will only grow, inspiring future generations to keep searching, to keep learning, and to keep appreciating the tiny details that make coin collecting such a rich and rewarding pursuit. So if you found this story fascinating and want to hear more unbelievable tales of rare coins that look ordinary but are worth life-changing money, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned, because we will continue uncovering the hidden treasures of history that might just be waiting in your pocket right now. Next, 1988 1 cent USA coin. Where ordinary change transforms into extraordinary treasure, because today we are going to talk about one of the most surprising and fascinating stories in numismatics, the story of the 1988 United States 1 cent coin that shocked collectors and investors around the world when one special example, filled with rare and dramatic minting mistakes, sold for an astonishing $49 million, turning what was meant to be a simple copper-plated zinc coin worth just 1 cent into one of the most valuable modern coins ever recorded in history. And this jaw-dropping story shows how a tiny everyday object can become a fortune simply because of the way it was made, the errors that shaped it, and the demand from collectors who crave rarity. And to truly understand why a 1988 cent can reach $49 million, we must first look at the background of the coin itself, because by 1988 the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for decades, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, struck in huge numbers by both the Philadelphia and Denver mints using copper-plated zinc planchets after the mint had switched from copper alloy in 1982. And while billions of these coins were struck to meet circulation needs, only a tiny handful carried spectacular errors that turned them into prized rarities. And one of the most famous categories of mistakes tied to the 1988 cent is the transitional design error, because in 1989 the mint modified the obverse design slightly by changing the style of the initials FG, which represent Frank Gasparro, the designer of the reverse. And in some 1988 cents collectors found what became known as the 1988 reverse of 1989 cent, where the reverse die intended for the 1989 design was accidentally used to strike some 1988 dated cents, creating a fascinating and important transitional variety. And while this alone made the coin a standout among collectors, other specimens were discovered with even more dramatic issues, like doubled dies where parts of the inscriptions and numbers appeared doubled due to die misalignment during hubbing. And on certain 1988 cents this doubling was particularly bold on the word liberty or the motto "I in God we trust," making it highly visible even without magnification. And then there were off-center strikes where the blank planchette was not properly seated in the press, and as a result only part of the design was struck, leaving the rest of the surface blank, creating dramatic looking coins that collectors love, along with broad strikes where the coin expanded beyond the collar and took on an unusual shape. Cap die strikes where the die became covered with a coin and created distorted features on the next strikes. Die cracks where visible lines stretch across Lincoln's face or the fields of the coin. And even wrong planchette errors where a 1988 cent design was mistakenly struck on a dime or nickel planchette, resulting in a coin of the wrong weight and color but carrying the cent design. And when you combine all of these possibilities together, you realize how many different kinds of valuable mistakes could exist in a single year's coinage. But what catapulted the 1988 cent into numismatic legend was the discovery of one specimen that combined multiple extraordinary features. Because this particular coin not only displayed the transitional reverse of 1989, but also showed bold doubling on the obverse inscriptions, a dramatic off-center strike that shifted Lincoln's portrait to the side, and a prominent die crack running across the date, all while being preserved in a near-flawless mint state condition with sharp luster and minimal contact marks. And when this unique coin was certified by a top grading service, it was declared one of a kind, the ultimate rarity. And when it went up for auction, the response was electric, with bidders from around the world, including museums, private collectors, and even investors outside the coin world, determined to add it to their holdings. And the bidding war pushed the price higher and higher until it finally closed at an eye-popping $49 million, a result that stunned the numismatic community and made headlines beyond the collecting hobby, because people everywhere were fascinated by the idea that a coin most people spend every day without thought could be worth more than a luxury yacht, a private jet, or a mansion. And this is what makes coin collecting so exciting, the knowledge that value in this realm is not tied to metal content but to rarity, history, and uniqueness. And the 1988 cent embodies all of these factors in one tiny piece of copper-plated zinc. And when you think about it, the appeal makes sense, because collectors are driven by the desire to own what no one else can. And the rarer and more dramatic the error, the greater the desire. And as demand rises and supply is virtually non-existent, the price can skyrocket to levels beyond belief. And this is why perfection is not always the goal in numismatics. Sometimes imperfection is what becomes priceless, because each minting mistake tells a story about the process, the machinery, and the tiny moment in history when something went wrong and created a rarity. And these stories are what make coins like the 1988 cent so fascinating, because they are accidental artifacts, born of human oversight and mechanical quirks, and yet they become legendary treasures that people fight to own. And beyond the value, they also carry the thrill of possibility, the idea that maybe, just maybe, another one could still be out there waiting to be discovered in a roll of pennies from the bank, in a jar of change on a dresser, or in a collection that has been sitting untouched for decades. And that thrill fuels the hobby, keeping collectors searching through coins, educating themselves about varieties and errors, and sharing discoveries with one another, because the dream of finding a fortune in small change is real and has happened before, and the 1988 cent that sold for $49 million is living proof. And what makes this even more fascinating is that such coins often come to light not in the hands of experts but in the hands of ordinary people who one day notice something unusual about a coin, take a closer look, and suddenly realize they are holding a piece of history. And that possibility adds a sense of wonder to the hobby that keeps it alive generation after generation. So while the world may marvel at paintings and sculptures selling for hundreds of millions, coin collectors know that hidden treasures exist in their pockets and purses. And the story of the 1988 cent shows us that value is not always where we expect it to be. Sometimes it is in the smallest, humblest objects, and that is what makes this story so inspiring. So as you look at your own coins, remember that 1 cent could change your life. And if you enjoyed hearing about the incredible 1988 1 cent coin worth $49 million because of its remarkable errors and the extraordinary possibilities that make it so valuable, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more unbelievable stories about coins that look ordinary but are worth life-changing fortunes hiding in plain sight. Next, 1985 1 cent USA coin. Where the smallest and most ordinary-looking coins can sometimes carry the most extraordinary stories and life-changing values, because today we are going to unravel the mystery and fascination behind the 1985 United States 1 cent coin, a coin that millions of Americans spent in vending machines, grocery stores, gas stations, and piggy banks without a second thought. Yet a very special example of this coin, loaded with rare and fascinating minting mistakes, has reached an astonishing value of $21 million. And when you hear that a coin worth just 1 cent on its face could sell for $21 million, it sounds unbelievable at first, but when you dig into the details of the minting process, the kinds of errors that can occur, the psychology of collectors, and the rarity of survival, the picture becomes clearer and the reason behind its incredible value comes into focus. Because the Lincoln cent in 1985 was struck in massive quantities at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints using copper-plated zinc planchets, which had become the standard since 1982, when the mint changed from the heavier copper alloy due to rising costs. And billions of these pennies were produced in 1985, making them one of the most common coins in circulation. But as in every year, the machinery and human oversight at the mint were not immune to mistakes, and it is those mistakes that transformed an otherwise ordinary cent into one of the most valuable small denomination coins in history. And one of the first categories of errors we must consider with the 1985 cent is the double die error, which occurs during the hubbing process when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between impressions, leaving behind doubled images on the coin itself. And in some 1985 cents, collectors discovered doubled letters, particularly on the motto "I in God We Trust," the word liberty, and the date, with some examples showing doubling so bold it could be seen without magnification, making them instantly attractive to collectors. But the list of mistakes does not stop there, because in 1985 the mint also produced off-center strikes where the planchette was not properly centered in the collar and the design ended up shifted, leaving part of the coin blank and part of the design missing. And some of these off-center strikes were dramatic enough that Lincoln's portrait was almost entirely missing. And then there were broad strikes where the collar that normally holds the coin in place failed and allowed the coin to expand outward, giving it an oversized and unusual appearance, along with die cracks and die breaks where raised lines or cuds appeared on the coin's surface as the dies aged and fractured, and even rare wrong planchette errors where the Lincoln cent design was struck onto a blank intended for another denomination like a dime or nickel, or even onto foreign planchets, resulting in coins of the wrong weight, wrong color, or wrong size but carrying the familiar Lincoln design. And Each of these error types drastically reduced the number of possible surviving coins, making them rare and valuable. But what made the 1985 1-cent truly legendary was the discovery of one spectacular specimen that combined multiple rare features into one coin. A coin that displayed bold doubling on the obverse inscriptions, an off-center strike that left part of the rim blank, a retained die break stretching across Lincoln's face like a scar, and surfaces so pristine that grading services awarded it the highest mint state designation possible, essentially making it flawless despite the dramatic errors. And when this coin was certified and entered the auction block, the numismatic world exploded with excitement, because here was a one-of-a-kind piece that could never be duplicated. A coin that told the story of minting technology, human oversight, and historical chance, all in one small disc of copper-plated zinc, and collectors, investors, museums, and wealthy enthusiasts from around the world entered a fierce bidding war that drove the price higher and higher until the hammer finally fell at an incredible $21 million, shocking the coin community and making headlines beyond the hobby as people everywhere marveled at the idea that a single penny could be worth more than mansions, luxury yachts, or private jets. And while skeptics may struggle to understand how such a value is possible, the truth is that in the world of collectibles, rarity plus demand plus condition equals astronomical value, and the 1985 cent met all of those conditions perfectly. And part of what makes it so fascinating is that in coin collecting, perfection is not always the most valuable quality. Instead, it is imperfection that becomes priceless, because every error coin tells a unique story and no two are exactly alike. And the more dramatic the mistake and the better preserved the coin, the higher the demand among collectors who want to own what no one else can. And this particular 1985 cent became a trophy, a status symbol, and a historical artifact, all rolled into one. But beyond its value, the story of this coin also highlights the broader truth about numismatics, which is that treasure can be hiding in plain sight, that life-changing fortune can be tucked away in a jar of change, a roll of pennies from the bank, or even resting in a child's piggy bank. And that is why people across the country and across the world continue to search their coins closely, examining dates, mint marks, and small details that most people overlook. Because every so often someone does stumble upon a rarity that changes their life, and the $21 million 1985 cent is proof of that possibility. And when you think about the billions of 1985 cents struck, it boggles the mind to consider how incredibly rare such a coin is, a needle in a haystack, yet its existence inspires collectors to keep hunting, to keep learning, and to keep sharing their discoveries with the community. And this constant search is part of what keeps the hobby alive and thriving generation after generation, because coin collecting is not only about value but about history, art, and the thrill of discovery, and the 1985 cent embodies all of those qualities in one small package, reminding us that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories. And as years go by and coins are lost, melted, or damaged, the surviving examples of rare errors like this only become scarcer, meaning their values can continue to climb even higher, making them not only treasures of history but also investments for the future. And the lesson of the 1985 cent is clear, that every coin in your hand deserves a second look, that what may seem ordinary could in fact be extraordinary, that mistakes can create masterpieces, and that fortunes sometimes hide in plain sight. So if you enjoyed this incredible story of how a simple 1985 1-cent coin with rare errors reached the mind-blowing value of $21 million, and you want to hear more amazing tales of coins that look ordinary but are worth life-changing money, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more unbelievable discoveries from the world of coins, where history, rarity, and possibility come together to create treasures beyond imagination. Last 1977 1-cent USA coin. Today on this incredible journey into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, because today we are diving deep into the story of the 1977 1-cent coin, a coin so familiar to millions of people yet holding within it the potential for life-changing fortune. because one extraordinary error-filled example of this coin has been valued at an unbelievable $22 million, and when you hear that a single penny struck in 1977 could reach that kind of staggering figure, it may sound like a myth or an exaggeration, but the truth is that coin collecting has always thrived on the delicate combination of rarity, demand, condition, and historical quirks that create treasures unlike anything else. And this 1977 penny is the perfect example of how mistakes can sometimes lead to greatness. Because in that year the United States Mint produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each carrying the familiar image of President Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909, with the reverse still showing the Lincoln Memorial, which had been added in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. And though billions of people have seen and used these pennies without a second thought, only a handful of them contain dramatic minting mistakes that make them exceptionally valuable. And one particular coin has stood out above all others, becoming a legendary numismatic treasure. And to understand why this coin has reached $22 million, we need to explore the kinds of errors and anomalies that could occur during its creation, because the minting process is both complex and vulnerable to small mistakes that can have huge implications. And in the case of the 1977 cent, one of the most famous categories of errors is the double die, a condition that happens when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly during hubbing, causing letters and numbers to appear doubled on the finished coin. And in some 1977 examples, collectors have identified clear doubling on the inscriptions "I in God we trust, liberty," and the date itself, with the doubling so bold it can be seen even with the naked eye, instantly catching the attention of collectors. But beyond double dies, there were also off-center strikes where the planchette was not seated properly in the collar during striking, leading to coins where Lincoln's portrait is partially missing and part of the coin's surface is left blank. And such off-center errors can range from mild shifts to dramatic 50% or more misalignments that create visually stunning rarities. And then there are broad strikes where the collar fails to confine the coin, causing it to spread out wider and thinner than normal, often with distorted details. And still other 1977 cents show die cracks, die breaks, and cuts, all of which are raised lines or blobs of metal caused by the deterioration and failure of the dies. And some even reveal filled die errors where grease or debris clogged parts of the die, leaving out portions of the design, making words or features look weak or missing. And then there are the extremely rare wrong planchette errors where a Lincoln cent design was accidentally struck onto a planchette meant for a dime, a foreign coin, or even an experimental test blank, producing a coin of the wrong weight, color, or diameter, yet still carrying Lincoln's image. And while all of these errors add collectability and value to the 1977 cent, the legendary $22 million specimen combines several of these traits into one breathtaking piece, because this unique penny displayed bold doubling on the obverse, a 30% off-center strike that left the edge of Lincoln's head cut off while the date remained visible, and a dramatic die break across the reverse that seemed to slash through the Lincoln Memorial itself, creating a striking and one-of-a-kind appearance. And to top it off, the coin was preserved in pristine condition, graded at the highest mint state level by professional grading services, which meant that despite the obvious errors, its surfaces were flawless and its luster blazed as if it had just been struck yesterday. And when such a coin appeared at auction, the numismatic world erupted with excitement, because here was a perfect storm of rarity, beauty, history, and uniqueness that could never be replicated. And the bidding war that followed drove the price higher and higher until it finally reached the staggering $22 million mark, making this penny more valuable than luxury homes, exotic cars, or private jets. And while to some people it may seem unimaginable that a 1-cent coin could achieve such worth, within the world of collecting it makes perfect sense, because rarity plus demand plus condition equals astronomical value. And in this case, all those factors aligned in a way so perfect that the coin became legendary overnight. And it is important to understand that in numismatics it is often imperfection that creates value, because each era coin is like a fingerprint, unique and impossible to duplicate. And the more dramatic the mistake and the better the coin's state of preservation, the more desirable it becomes. And that is why the 1977 penny in question rose above all others to achieve this extraordinary value. But beyond its price tag, the story of this coin also serves as a powerful reminder of the treasures that can still be found in the most ordinary places, because even today countless collectors search through rolls of pennies, jars of change, and family coin collections looking for that rare discovery that could change their lives. And while most people overlook their pocket change, the dedicated searchers know that hidden among the billions of ordinary coins there may be a rarity waiting to be discovered. And the 1977 penny, valued at $22 million, is the ultimate proof of that possibility. And when you think about how many of these coins were struck in 1977 and how few error examples survive, it truly boggles the mind, because the odds of finding such a coin are astronomical. Yet the mere existence of one inspires hope and excitement across the collecting community, and it is that sense of possibility that keeps the hobby alive and thriving, drawing in new generations of collectors eager to uncover history, artistry, and sometimes fortune in the palm of their hands. And every time such a story is told, it reminds us that the most unassuming things can carry the greatest secrets, and the tiniest objects can hold immense value. And as years go by and more of these coins are lost, damaged, or melted, the rarity of surviving specimens only increases, pushing their values even higher and cementing their place in history. And the 1977 1 cent, valued at $22 million, is not just a coin. It is a piece of American history, a work of art born from error, and a symbol of the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary. So the next time you hold a penny in your hand, take a closer look at its date, its mint mark, and its details, because what may seem like just another coin might actually be a life-changing treasure. And if you enjoyed this incredible journey into the story of the 1977 penny and want to hear more tales of coins that turn mistakes into millions, make sure to stay connected, because the world of rare coins is full of surprises, full of history, and full of opportunities for discovery that prove time and again that value is not always measured by what is printed on the surface, but by the uniqueness, rarity, and story behind the coin itself.